Colonel Sarah Mitchell had built her reputation on attention to detail and an uncanny ability to spot inconsistencies that others missed. As the wing's deputy commander for maintenance, she made regular visits to the flight line to observe operations firsthand rather than relying solely on reports from subordinates. Her presence usually made junior personnel nervous, but her genuine interest in technical excellence had earned respect throughout the maintenance community. On this particular morning, Colonel Mitchell was conducting what appeared to be a routine inspection of ongoing maintenance activities. However, her real purpose was to evaluate Staff Sergeant Santos, whose recent performance had attracted attention from multiple sources. The successful battle damage repair project had been impressive, but certain aspects of Santos's technical approach suggested experience beyond what her official training records indicated. Maria was working on a routine inspection when she noticed Colonel Mitchell approaching her work area. She continued her tasks while maintaining awareness of the senior officer's presence, following standard protocol for working around visiting dignitaries. However, she couldn't shake the feeling that this inspection was different from the routine visits that senior officers typically conducted. The A-10 Maria was inspecting had recently returned from a mission with minor hydraulic leaks that required investigation and repair. It was the kind of straightforward maintenance task that she could complete efficiently while demonstrating proper procedures to any observing officers. However, as she worked, she noticed Colonel Mitchell paying unusually close attention to her specific techniques and decision-making process. Colonel Mitchell's questions began innocuously enough, focusing on standard maintenance procedures and technical specifications that any competent specialist should know. However, Maria detected an undercurrent of deeper inquiry in the colonel's approach, as if she were being evaluated for something beyond routine competence. The questions gradually became more sophisticated, requiring detailed knowledge of advanced systems integration and failure analysis. As Maria removed her outer uniform shirt to work in the confined space beneath the aircraft, the small tattoo on her upper arm became visible. It was a simple design that most people would dismiss as decorative artwork, but Colonel Mitchell's expression changed subtly when she noticed it. The tattoo depicted a stylized phoenix rising from flames, surrounded by 13 small stars arranged in a specific pattern that had special meaning for those who recognized it. Colonel Mitchell's questioning style shifted immediately after noticing the tattoo. Her inquiries became more focused on Maria's previous assignments and training background, probing for details about experiences that weren't reflected in standard personnel records. Maria answered carefully, providing truthful information while avoiding any details that might compromise classified operations or violate security protocols. The significance of the tattoo wasn't immediately obvious to casual observers, but Colonel Mitchell had seen it before. The design was used by members of a highly classified Special Operations Support Unit that officially didn't exist in any organizational charts. Personnel who had served with that unit often got matching tattoos as a way of maintaining connection with teammates they couldn't openly acknowledge, since discussing their shared experiences was prohibited by security regulations. Maria realized that Colonel Mitchell had recognized the tattoo when the colonel's questions became increasingly specific about advanced aircraft modifications and specialized maintenance procedures. These weren't topics that would normally come up during routine inspections, and Maria understood that her carefully guarded secret was no longer completely hidden. However, she continued to answer professionally while avoiding any direct acknowledgement of classified activities. The conversation took an unexpected turn when Colonel Mitchell asked about Maria's experience with night vision systems integration, a highly specialized field that wasn't part of standard A-10 maintenance training. The question could have been coincidental, but, combined with the colonel's obvious recognition of the tattoo, it suggested that her background was being specifically investigated rather than randomly evaluated. Maria's response to the night vision question confirmed Colonel Mitchell's suspicions. The technical details that Maria provided demonstrated intimate familiarity with systems that were only used on classified special operations aircraft. Her knowledge went far beyond what could be learned from technical manuals, indicating hands-on experience with equipment that officially didn't exist in any maintenance curriculum. Colonel Mitchell concluded the inspection without directly addressing the classified implications of their conversation. However, she made arrangements to meet privately with Maria later that day, using the pretext of discussing her potential for advanced leadership training. Both women understood that the real purpose of the meeting would be to address the complications created by Maria's previous assignment and her current visibility within the wing. The private meeting took place in Colonel Mitchell's office that afternoon, with strict security protocols ensuring that their conversation wouldn't be overheard or recorded. The colonel's first priority was confirming that Maria understood the ongoing security requirements related to her previous assignment and ensuring that no classified information had been inadvertently compromised during her current deployment. Maria assured Colonel Mitchell that she had maintained complete operational security throughout her current assignment, never discussing classified missions or revealing specialized knowledge except when absolutely necessary for safety reasons. However, she acknowledged that her technical expertise sometimes exceeded what her official training record would suggest, creating potential security concerns if carefully examined. Colonel Mitchell explained that Maria's exceptional performance had attracted attention from senior leadership throughout the Air Force, including personnel involved in classified operations planning. Her combination of technical expertise, leadership ability, and proven security reliability made her a candidate for advanced assignments that would require even higher security clearances and more specialized training. The opportunity being offered was both exciting and daunting. Maria would be selected for an elite maintenance specialist program that supported the most sensitive operations in the Air Force inventory. The assignment would involve working with prototype aircraft and experimental systems that pushed the boundaries of current technology, but it would also mean accepting even greater restrictions on her personal life and career flexibility. Colonel Mitchell emphasized that accepting the advanced assignment would require Maria to sign additional security agreements and undergo extensive background investigations that would examine every aspect of her personal and professional life. The screening process was designed to identify any potential vulnerabilities that could be exploited by foreign intelligence services, and it was thorough enough to eliminate most candidates before they reached final selection. The decision also had implications for Maria's family relationships and future career plans. Personnel involved in highly classified operations often found it difficult to maintain normal social connections, since they couldn't discuss their work with friends or family members who lacked appropriate security clearances. The isolation could be professionally rewarding but personally challenging over extended periods. Maria asked for time to consider the opportunity, recognizing that accepting would fundamentally change the trajectory of her military career. Colonel Mitchell granted her request but emphasized that the decision needed to be made within 2 weeks, since operational requirements demanded rapid personnel placement for the program she was being considered to join. Over the following days, Maria found herself weighing the professional excitement of working with cutting-edge technology against the personal costs of increased security restrictions and limited career flexibility. She consulted with the unit chaplain about the ethical implications of her work, and she spoke with her family about the general direction of her career without revealing specific details about the opportunity being offered. The conversation with her family proved particularly challenging, since they had been hoping that she would transition to civilian employment after completing her current enlistment. Her parents were concerned about the long-term effects of military life on her personal relationships and overall well-being, while her brother Diego was excited about the possibility of following a similar career path despite their mother's objections. Maria also sought advice from Captain Johnson, who had become both a professional mentor and trusted friend during their time working together. While he couldn't provide specific guidance about classified opportunities, he helped her think through the broader implications of accepting advanced assignments that would limit her future options while providing unique professional development opportunities. The technical aspects of the potential assignment appealed strongly to Maria's professional interests. Working with prototype systems and experimental technology would provide learning experiences that couldn't be found anywhere in the civilian aerospace industry. The knowledge and skills she would develop could establish her as one of the world's leading experts in advanced aircraft systems, opening career possibilities that extended far beyond traditional military service. However, Maria also recognized that accepting the assignment would require making long-term commitments that could restrict her personal freedom for many years to come. The security requirements would limit where she could live, who she could associate with, and even what countries she could visit during personal travel. These restrictions were necessary for national security but could significantly impact her quality of life outside of work. As the deadline for her decision approached, Maria found herself leaning toward accepting the advanced assignment despite its personal costs. Her previous experience with classified operations had been professionally fulfilling despite the stress and isolation involved, and she believed that she could make meaningful contributions to national security while advancing her own technical expertise. The final factor in her decision was a conversation with Major Chen, who had been one of the pilots supported by Maria's work during her previous classified assignment. The Major couldn't discuss specific details of their shared experiences, but she emphasized how critical skilled maintenance specialists were to the success of sensitive operations that protected American lives and interests around the world. On the appointed day, Maria met again with Colonel Mitchell to provide her decision. After careful consideration of all factors involved, she accepted the advanced assignment and began the process of transitioning from her current position to the classified program. The change would require several months of additional training and security processing, but it represented the logical next step in a military career that had already exceeded her initial expectations. Colonel Mitchell congratulated Maria on her decision and outlined the preliminary steps required to begin the transition process. The first phase would involve completing her current deployment while gradually transferring her responsibilities to other maintenance specialists who could continue the work she had been doing with the Wing's A-10 fleet. The transition process also required Maria to undergo additional psychological evaluation and security screening to ensure that she could handle the increased pressures and restrictions associated with her new assignment. These evaluations were more intensive than anything she had experienced previously, examining not only her technical qualifications but also her emotional stability and commitment to maintaining operational security. As word spread through the maintenance community about Maria's selection for advanced training, her colleagues expressed mixed reactions. Some were excited about her opportunity to work with cutting-edge technology, while others were concerned about losing one of their most capable specialists during a time when operational demands remained high. Maria spent her final weeks with the Wing documenting her repair procedures and training techniques so that other specialists could benefit from the knowledge she had developed during her deployment. She also worked to complete several ongoing projects that could be finished before her departure, ensuring that her transition wouldn't create unnecessary burdens for her replacement. The departure process was bittersweet for Maria, who had developed strong professional relationships and personal friendships during her time with the Wing. However, she was also excited about the challenges and opportunities that awaited her in the classified program, knowing that her work would contribute to capabilities that could make a significant difference in protecting American interests and personnel around the world. Colonel Mitchell's recognition of Maria's background and potential had opened doors to opportunities that would define the remainder of her military career. The small tattoo that had revealed her previous service now symbolized not just past achievements but also future possibilities that would test her skills and dedication in ways that few military personnel ever experience. As she prepared for the next phase of her career, Maria understood that her commitment to excellence and operational security had earned her a place among the elite specialists who support America's most sensitive operations. Looking back on the events that had brought her to this point, Maria recognized how a routine cannon repair had unexpectedly led to life-changing opportunities. Her technical expertise, proven reliability, and previous classified experience had combined to make her an ideal candidate for advanced assignments that would challenge her abilities while serving important national security objectives. The path forward would be demanding, but it represented the kind of professional growth that she had hoped to achieve when she first chose military service as her career. The small phoenix tattoo that had caught Colonel Mitchell's attention served as a reminder of Maria's ability to rise from challenging circumstances and emerge stronger than before. As she prepared for the next chapter of her military career, she carried with her the confidence that comes from proven competence and the satisfaction of knowing that 3 weeks after the successful cannon repair, Maria found herself assigned to one of the most challenging maintenance jobs of her deployment. An A-10 had returned from a mission with severe battle damage, including multiple hits to the fuselage and significant damage to several critical systems. The aircraft had barely made it back to base, and now it required extensive repair work before it could return to operational status. The damage assessment revealed problems that went far beyond routine maintenance. Shrapnel from an enemy surface-to-air missile had penetrated the aircraft's armor plating, damaging hydraulic lines and electrical systems throughout the forward section. The pilot had managed to maintain control through exceptional skill and the A-10's legendary durability, but the aircraft would need weeks of intensive repair work. Maria was selected to lead the repair team because of her experience with complex systems integration. The job would require coordinating multiple specialties, from structural repair to avionics replacement, while ensuring that all systems worked together properly when the repairs were completed. It was the kind of challenge that could define a maintenance specialist's career, and Maria approached it with both excitement and appropriate caution. The first step involved creating a detailed repair plan that addressed not only the obvious damage but also potential secondary effects that might not be immediately visible. Battle damage often created stress patterns that could cause failures in seemingly undamaged components weeks or months later. Maria's job was to identify these potential problems and address them during the current repair cycle. Working with the engineering team, Maria developed a systematic approach that would allow multiple repair crews to work simultaneously without interfering with each other's progress. The aircraft would essentially be disassembled and rebuilt from the inside out, with each system being tested individually before integration with other components. It was a complex process that required precise coordination and constant communication between team members. The repair work began in earnest on a Monday morning, with Maria supervising 6 different specialist teams working on various aspects of the project. Structural repair technicians began removing damaged armor plating, while electrical specialists traced damaged wiring throughout the forward fuselage. Meanwhile, hydraulic specialists worked to assess the extent of damage to the aircraft's control systems. As the work progressed, Maria discovered that the damage was even more extensive than initial assessments had indicated. Several critical components that had appeared undamaged from external inspection showed signs of internal damage from shock and vibration. This meant extending the repair timeline and ordering additional replacement parts, but Maria knew that attempting to cut corners would only result in future failures. The complexity of the repair required Maria to draw on knowledge gained from her previous classified assignment. During that deployment, she had worked on aircraft that had sustained similar battle damage, learning techniques for assessing structural integrity and identifying potential failure points that weren't covered in standard technical manuals. However, she had to be careful about how she applied this knowledge, since revealing too much could compromise classified information. One particularly challenging aspect of the repair involved replacing a section of the aircraft's titanium armor plating. The A-10’s famous durability came from its use of advanced materials and construction techniques that required specialized tools and procedures. Maria had to coordinate with depot-level maintenance specialists to ensure that the replacement armor would provide the same level of protection as the original components. The electrical system repairs proved equally complex, requiring the replacement of over 200 feet of wiring harness and dozens of electronic components. Each wire had to be routed precisely according to technical specifications, and every connection had to be tested to ensure proper signal transmission. A single misconnected wire could cause system failures that might not manifest until the aircraft was in combat conditions. As the repair work continued into its second week, Maria found herself working increasingly long hours to maintain the project schedule. The base commander had expressed interest in getting the aircraft back into service as quickly as possible, since every available A-10 was needed for ongoing operations. However, Maria refused to compromise safety standards, insisting that each repair be completed properly regardless of time pressures. The hydraulic system repairs required particular attention to detail, since the A-10's control systems depended on redundant hydraulic circuits for flight safety. Each circuit had to be pressure tested individually and, then, tested again as part of the integrated system. Maria personally supervised these tests, knowing that hydraulic failures in combat conditions could be fatal for pilots who depended on these systems for aircraft control. During the third week of repairs, an unexpected complication arose when structural inspections revealed additional damage that had been hidden beneath intact outer skin panels. The discovery meant extending the repair timeline by at least another week, but Maria knew that attempting to ignore the damage would be criminally irresponsible. She briefed her chain of command on the situation and received approval to continue with the expanded repair scope. The additional structural work required bringing in specialists from other units, creating a larger and more complex team dynamic. Maria had to adapt her leadership approach to manage technicians from different backgrounds and specialties, ensuring that everyone understood both their individual responsibilities and how their work fit into the larger project. It was a challenging management situation that tested her leadership skills as much as her technical knowledge. As the repair project entered its fourth week, Maria began conducting preliminary systems tests to verify that completed repairs were functioning properly. These tests revealed minor problems that required additional adjustments, but overall the repair work was progressing successfully. Each system that came online represented hundreds of hours of careful work by skilled technicians working under challenging conditions. The integration phase of the repair proved particularly demanding, as Maria had to ensure that all the individually repaired systems worked together as a cohesive unit. This required extensive testing and adjustment, since even perfectly functioning individual components could create problems when connected to other systems. The process reminded Maria of conducting an orchestra, with each section needing to perform in harmony with the others. Throughout the repair process, Maria maintained detailed documentation of all work performed, creating a record that would be valuable for future maintenance and potential warranty claims. This documentation also served as a training resource for less experienced technicians, showing them how complex battle damage repairs should be approached systematically and thoroughly. The pressure of managing such a complex project began to take its toll on Maria's personal well-being. She found herself staying awake at night, mentally reviewing the day's work and planning the next day's activities. The responsibility of ensuring that every aspect of the repair met safety standards weighed heavily on her, particularly knowing that pilot safety depended on her team's competence and attention to detail. Support from her supervisors and fellow technicians helped Maria manage the stress of the project. Captain Johnson made sure that she had access to whatever resources were needed, while other experienced maintenance specialists offered advice and assistance when particularly challenging problems arose. This collaborative environment reminded Maria why she had chosen to make the military her career, despite the personal sacrifices involved. As the repair work neared completion, Maria began coordinating with test pilots who would evaluate the aircraft's performance before it returned to operational status. These test flights would put every repaired system through demanding scenarios designed to reveal any remaining problems before the aircraft was cleared for combat missions. It was a thorough process that left little room for undetected errors. The first test flight was scheduled for a Thursday morning, giving Maria's team 2 additional days to complete final inspections and address any minor issues that were discovered during pre-flight checks. These final preparations were crucial, since any problems discovered during the test flight would require additional repair work and delay the aircraft's return to service. On Wednesday evening, Maria conducted a final walk-around inspection of the repaired aircraft, checking every external surface and verifying that all access panels were properly secured. The aircraft looked nearly new, with fresh paint covering the areas where armor plating had been replaced. However, Maria knew that the real test would come when the aircraft was subjected to the stresses of actual flight operations. The night before the test flight, Maria found it difficult to sleep. She mentally reviewed every aspect of the repair work, trying to identify any potential problems that might have been overlooked. This was a normal reaction for maintenance specialists before major test flights, but the complexity of this particular repair made the anxiety more intense than usual. Early Thursday morning, Maria arrived at the flight line to conduct pre-flight inspections and briefed the test pilot on the specific nature of the repairs that had been performed. Major Chen would again be conducting the test flight, and she wanted detailed information about what systems had been repaired and what performance characteristics to expect during the evaluation. The pre-flight inspection revealed no problems, and all systems tested within normal parameters. Maria signed off on the maintenance forms that cleared the aircraft for flight operations, taking personal responsibility for the safety and airworthiness of the repaired systems. It was a moment that combined professional pride with appropriate concern about the risks involved in returning damaged aircraft to service. As the aircraft taxied toward the runway, Maria watched from the maintenance area with a mixture of anticipation and nervous energy. The next hour would determine whether weeks of intensive repair work had been successful, or whether additional problems would require more time and effort to resolve. Either way, the test flight represented a critical milestone in her development as a maintenance specialist. The takeoff went smoothly, and radio communications indicated that all systems were functioning normally during the initial climb phase. However, the real test would come when Major Chen began conducting the aggressive maneuvers that would stress every repaired system to its operational limits. Maria listened to the radio traffic while monitoring her watch, knowing that each passing minute without problems indicated successful repairs. 30 minutes into the test flight, Major Chen reported that all systems were performing within expected parameters. The hydraulic systems were maintaining proper pressure, electrical systems were functioning normally, and the structural repairs were showing no signs of stress or failure. However, the most demanding tests were still to come, including high-G maneuvers and weapons systems evaluations. As the test flight progressed, Maria felt increasing confidence that the repair work had been successful. Major Chen's reports continued to be positive, and no warning indicators were appearing on any of the aircraft's systems. The months of intensive work appeared to be paying off, with the aircraft performing as well as it had before sustaining battle damage. The successful completion of the test flight represented more than just another completed maintenance job for Maria. The complexity and scope of the repairs had required her to draw on every aspect of her training and experience, while developing new skills in project management and team leadership. It was the kind of professional achievement that would define her reputation for the remainder of her military career. As the aircraft landed and taxied back to the maintenance area, Maria allowed herself a moment of quiet satisfaction. The project had been completed successfully, on schedule, and within budget, despite the unexpected complications that had emerged during the repair process. More importantly, another A-10 was returning to operational status, ready to provide close air support for troops who depended on these aircraft for survival in combat conditions. The post-flight debriefing confirmed that all repaired systems had functioned perfectly throughout the demanding test sequence. Major Chen praised the quality of the repair work and recommended that the aircraft be returned to full operational status without any restrictions or special monitoring requirements. For Maria and her team, it was the ultimate validation of their professional competence and dedication to excellence. That evening, Maria treated her repair team to dinner at the base dining facility, celebrating the successful completion of their most challenging project. The conversation focused on lessons learned and techniques that could be applied to future repairs, but there was also an underlying sense of professional satisfaction that came from overcoming significant technical challenges through teamwork and expertise. As she prepared for sleep that night, Maria reflected on how much her skills and confidence had grown during the intensive repair project. She had successfully managed a complex technical challenge while developing leadership abilities that would serve her well in future assignments. The experience had also reinforced her commitment to the maintenance profession and her desire to continue growing as a technical specialist. The successful repair project marked a turning point in Maria's deployment, establishing her reputation as one of the wing's most capable maintenance specialists. Word of her technical expertise and leadership abilities spread throughout the base, leading to requests for her assistance on other challenging projects. However, it also meant increased scrutiny from senior officers who were beginning to take notice of her exceptional performance and unique background. The morning sun cast long shadows across Bagram Airfield as Staff Sergeant Maria Santos crawled beneath the belly of the A-10 Thunderbolt. Her hands were already stained with hydraulic fluid, and sweat beaded on her forehead despite the cool Afghan dawn. The 30mm GAU-8 cannon had been jamming during yesterday's close air support mission, and the pilots were getting restless. In a combat zone, a broken gun meant the difference between life and death for troops on the ground. Maria had always been good with her hands. Growing up in East Los Angeles, she had spent countless hours in her father's auto repair shop, learning to diagnose problems by sound and feel rather than expensive diagnostic equipment. The military had recognized her talent early, sending her through advanced weapons systems training at Shepherd Air Force Base. Now, 3 years into her deployment, she was one of the most trusted armament specialists in the 455th Air Expeditionary Wing. The cannon's feed mechanism was more complex than most people realized. The GAU-8 wasn't just a big machine gun, it was a precision instrument capable of firing 3,900 rounds per minute of depleted uranium shells. Each component had to work in perfect harmony, and Maria had developed an almost intuitive understanding of its rhythms. She could tell by the subtle vibrations whether the linkless feed system was properly aligned or if the hydraulic pressure was running low. As she worked, removing the access panel to examine the ammunition drum, Maria's mind wandered to her younger brother back home. Diego had just enlisted in the army, following in her footsteps despite their mother's protests. Maria had written him letters describing the technical challenges of aircraft maintenance, hoping to steer him toward a support role rather than combat infantry. She knew the statistics about survival rates, and she worried about his impulsive nature. The problem with the cannon revealed itself gradually. A worn bearing in the drum rotation mechanism was causing intermittent jams, but only under specific G-force conditions that occurred during tight turns. It was the kind of issue that could take days to diagnose using standard procedures, but Maria's experience told her exactly where to look. She had seen similar problems on 2 other aircraft over the past year. Working in the confined space beneath the aircraft required both physical strength and patience. Maria had to contort her body into uncomfortable positions while maintaining precise control over her tools. The replacement bearing was located behind several other components, requiring her to essentially disassemble half the feed system. It was meticulous work that couldn't be rushed, especially when the lives of pilots and ground troops depended on her getting it right. Hours passed as Maria methodically worked through the repair. Other maintenance crews moved around the flight line, preparing aircraft for the day's missions. The sound of jet engines warming up filled the air, along with the constant chatter of radio communications. This was the rhythm of military aviation, controlled chaos that somehow produced reliable results day after day. By noon, the desert heat had made working conditions almost unbearable. Maria's uniform was soaked with sweat, and her hands were cramping from gripping tools in tight spaces. But she could sense that she was close to completing the repair. The new bearing was properly seated, and she had begun the careful process of reassembling the feed mechanism. Each bolt had to be torqued to exact specifications, and every hydraulic line had to be tested for leaks. The work reminded her of a mission from 2 years earlier, one that still haunted her dreams. She had been part of a special operations support team, maintaining aircraft for missions that officially didn't exist. The operations were so classified that even discussing them with other military personnel could result in court-martial. Maria had signed documents promising never to reveal details of what she had witnessed, and she had kept that promise faithfully. During one particularly intense period, she had worked for 36 hours straight to keep a fleet of modified aircraft operational. The pilots were flying missions deep into enemy territory, and the aircraft were taking damage that pushed every system to its limits. Maria had performed repairs under combat conditions, with enemy rockets falling around the airfield while she worked to replace damaged components. The stress of that deployment had been overwhelming. Several members of her unit had suffered nervous breakdowns, and 2 had been medically evacuated for psychological treatment. Maria had coped by focusing entirely on her work, treating each repair as a puzzle to be solved rather than dwelling on the broader implications of the missions. It was a survival mechanism that had served her well, but it had also left emotional scars that she was still processing. As she tested the cannon's feed mechanism, Maria allowed herself a small smile of satisfaction. The repair was complete, and the system was functioning smoothly. She had replaced not only the worn bearing but also several other components that showed signs of excessive wear. It was the kind of thorough maintenance that prevented future problems rather than simply addressing immediate symptoms. The afternoon brought a visit from Captain Johnson, the unit's maintenance officer. He was a competent leader who trusted his specialists to do their jobs without micromanagement, but he also understood the importance of staying informed about complex repairs. Maria briefed him on the work she had performed, explaining the root cause of the jamming and the preventive measures she had implemented. Captain Johnson listened carefully to her technical explanation, asking detailed questions about the failure analysis and repair procedures. He had learned to rely on Maria's expertise, particularly for difficult problems that stumped less experienced technicians. Her reputation for solving complex issues had spread throughout the wing, and other units sometimes requested her assistance with their most challenging maintenance problems. As the day wound down, Maria began preparing for the test flight that would verify her repair work. The pilot would put the aircraft through a series of maneuvers designed to stress test every system, including multiple firing sequences with the cannon. It was always a tense moment for maintenance personnel, knowing that any oversight in their work could result in mission failure or even loss of life. The test pilot was Major Rebecca Chen, a veteran A-10 driver with over 2,000 combat hours. She had a reputation for thoroughness and attention to detail that made her an ideal choice for evaluating maintenance work. Major Chen took time to discuss the specific nature of the repair with Maria, asking about expected performance characteristics and potential warning signs of recurring problems. As the aircraft taxied toward the runway, Maria felt the familiar mixture of pride and anxiety that accompanied every completed repair. She had done everything by the book, following technical orders precisely and documenting every step of the process. But aviation maintenance always involved an element of uncertainty, and even the most skilled technicians occasionally missed subtle problems that could manifest later. The test flight lasted 45 minutes, during which Major Chen put the aircraft through increasingly demanding maneuvers. The cannon fired flawlessly during multiple test sequences, and all other systems performed within normal parameters. When the aircraft landed and taxied back to the maintenance area, Maria knew that her repair had been successful. Major Chen's debrief was brief but positive. The cannon had functioned perfectly throughout the flight, with no signs of the jamming that had plagued previous missions. She thanked Maria for her thorough work and signed off on the maintenance forms that would return the aircraft to operational status. It was a routine interaction, but one that carried significant meaning for everyone involved in keeping the mission running. As evening approached, Maria completed her paperwork and secured her tools for the night. Tomorrow would bring new challenges and different aircraft, but tonight she could take satisfaction in a job well done. The repair had been more complex than usual, requiring both technical skill and physical endurance, but the successful outcome justified the effort invested. Walking across the flight line toward the maintenance hangar, Maria reflected on how much her skills had developed since arriving in Afghanistan. Each challenging repair taught her something new about the aircraft systems, and each successful mission added to her confidence in high-pressure situations. She had evolved from a competent technician into a true specialist, capable of handling the most difficult problems that arose in combat conditions. The hangar was quiet as Maria cleaned and organized her tools for the next day's work. This ritual had become important to her, providing a sense of closure and preparation that helped maintain focus in a chaotic environment. She took pride in keeping her equipment in perfect condition, knowing that reliable tools were essential for reliable repairs. Before heading to the dining facility for dinner, Maria stopped by the Squadron Operations Center to check the next day's maintenance schedule. 3 more aircraft were listed for routine inspections, and one had a reported hydraulic leak that would require investigation. It was a typical workload for a maintenance specialist, but Maria had learned to approach each day with careful planning and realistic expectations about what could be accomplished. The dining facility was crowded with personnel from various units, creating a diverse mix of conversations and interactions. Maria usually ate quickly and returned to her quarters, preferring quiet time to decompress from the day's activities. But tonight she joined a table with other maintenance specialists, sharing stories about challenging repairs and discussing technical innovations that might improve their effectiveness. These informal discussions often proved more valuable than official training sessions. Experienced technicians shared practical insights that couldn't be found in technical manuals, while newer personnel asked questions that sometimes revealed overlooked problems. Maria had learned as much from these conversations as from any formal education, and she tried to contribute her own knowledge whenever possible. As she walked back to her quarters after dinner, Maria noticed increased activity around the special operations area of the base. Unmarked aircraft were being prepared for nighttime missions, and personnel moved with the focused urgency that indicated classified operations. It reminded her of her previous deployment, when she had been part of that hidden world of compartmentalized missions and restricted information. The memory brought back complex emotions that Maria had worked hard to process through counseling sessions with the unit chaplain. The classified nature of her previous work made it difficult to discuss her experiences with friends or family, leaving her feeling isolated despite being surrounded by fellow service members. She had learned coping strategies that helped manage the stress, but certain triggers could still bring back intense memories. Back in her quarters, Maria reviewed technical manuals related to the next day's scheduled maintenance. She had developed a habit of preparing mentally for each repair job, visualizing the procedures and potential complications before actually beginning work. This preparation helped reduce the stress of working under pressure while ensuring that she didn't overlook important details. The small room that served as her living space was spartanly furnished but personally meaningful. Photos of her family were arranged on a shelf next to her bed, and a small collection of books provided mental escape from the demands of military life. She had also kept a journal throughout her deployment, documenting both professional achievements and personal growth in a way that helped maintain perspective during difficult periods. As she prepared for sleep, Maria reflected on the day's successful repair and looked forward to tomorrow's challenges. Each completed mission brought her one step closer to returning home, but she had also developed a sense of professional satisfaction that made the work meaningful beyond simple obligation. She was serving her country while developing skills that would serve her well in civilian life, creating a foundation for whatever path she chose after military service. The base settled into its nighttime rhythm as Maria finally turned off her reading light. In a few hours, the cycle would begin again with new aircraft, new problems, and new opportunities to demonstrate the technical expertise that had become her professional identity. It was a demanding life, but one that had shaped her into a person she could respect and take pride in being. Outside her window, the sound of departing aircraft reminded her that the mission continued around the clock. Somewhere in the darkness, pilots were relying on the work she had performed earlier that day, trusting their lives to the mechanical systems she had repaired and maintained. It was a responsibility that she carried with appropriate seriousness, knowing that her competence and dedication directly impacted the safety and effectiveness of combat operations. Sleep came gradually, interrupted occasionally by the sounds of aircraft operations that formed the constant background of life at Bagram. Tomorrow would bring new challenges and opportunities to apply her skills in service of the mission. For now, Maria allowed herself the satisfaction of another day's work completed successfully, another step forward in a military career that had exceeded her initial expectations and provided purpose that extended far beyond personal advancement.